So the next item, and I appreciate members in the audience who have been patient to wait for our truth in taxation presentation. So school districts are required to meet the truth in taxation requirements for the levy year 2016 taxes payable 2017. And while school districts are no longer required to hold a separate truth in taxation hearing, we are required to discuss the payable 2016 levy and the current year budget at a regularly scheduled board meeting, which is tonight. So the truth in taxation requirements are as follows. On or before September 30th, 2016, each school district must adopt a proposed 2016 payable 2017 property tax levy and certify and submit it to the county auditor. And we did meet that requirement. The county auditor then mails parcel-specific tax notices to each property owner in the district, and then the school district is required to discuss the payable 2017 levy and the current budget, because we go on a fiscal year, we go from July through June, as you heard tonight. However, property taxes are collected between January and December, most likely in May and in October. But we haven't prepared the budget for the 17-18 school year yet, so we'll talk about the current budget. And you'll probably also recall that you approved that budget prior to July 1st. You approved it in June, and that is the budget that we are currently implementing. Another requirement is the public is given time to speak, so we'll make sure that we allow members in the community who would like to speak to the board that opportunity. And then finally, the school board must adopt a final levy by December 31st. So with that, I'm going to actually start the presentation. And because it's pretty much a financial night, you've talked a little bit about finances of the school district. I'll probably go through this information fairly rapidly, and then allow time for questions from either you or from the public in general. So as I mentioned, the property taxes that we're presenting today for the truth in taxation hearing, and then subsequently we'll ask the board to approve, will fund a portion of the 17-18 school year. And this is just a notice that we are having our meeting, our truth in taxation meeting, as a part of our regular meeting, which was held or is being held today, Monday, December 12th at 7. So the first item we wanted to talk about was our current year budget. So our 2016-17 budget is $177,367,365 in revenue and $191,926,076 in expenditures. You'll probably notice that our general fund is largely balanced, as well as the food service fund, the community service fund, and the debt service fund. The largest reason for expenditures exceeding revenues is because we are in the process of utilizing the $109 million worth of bond proceeds that were approved by voters. Now it's like 34 months ago, so we've been doing the monthly countdown, and most of those projects will be completed by the end of the calendar year, so by the end of the month today, end of the month, December. Just a couple items to remind our community as well as the board. We receive about 66.2% of our revenue from the state. Much of that revenue is received based on the number of students that we serve, and much of that is through formulas that are legislated. So the legislature provides the formulas that fund school districts and give us authority, or in some instances require us to go to the voters to gain authority to generate the revenue that provides the funding for our programs. You can see that the property tax levy is just under 30% of our total revenue resources. And then we do receive some other revenue of about 2%. That would be fees and other resources that the district receives. And then our federal aid is about 2.1%. As far as our expenditure categories, I guess it would be no surprise that because we're a service organization, the majority of our expenditures would be related to staff or salary and benefits. So we spend about 75.6% of our budget on salary and benefits. And then if you look, we also have some other major components. The purchase services is where we would pay for our transportation program. You're probably aware that we need to transport students to and from school. It's also where we pay for our utilities. So we spend about $2 million heating and lighting all of our facilities during the school year. And then lastly, we have supplies and materials, which really are a very small portion of our budget, about 2.3%. And then we have some capital items. That would be textbooks, and that would be the some of the other supplies and equipment that are used in the school district. We do transfer items, about 5.6 of our resources to other funds, and that's basically for the technology levy. That's been approved by our voters, and it's dedicated. It can only be used for technology, so it actually funds the MyWay iPads and other technology that are included in the district. Our property tax levy history, it's always helpful to look at the history over the years of our property tax levy. Typically, the property tax levy has a somewhat correlation with our enrollment, and as our enrollment has grown, our property taxes have increased as well. One thing that this document or this slide does not show is that our tax base has been growing too. So that should help to minimize any taxpayer impact on individual property owners within our district unless they are an outlier. In other words, if they do any major home improvements or if an assessor comes out and determines that the value of that their home is currently undervalued. So we've talked about the budget. Now I'd like to talk about the proposed tax levy. The 2017 proposed levy is $60,868,006.82. This must be a typo. The 2016 certified levy was $58,429,818.74. So the change is just a little over $2.4 million, or a 4.17% change. I would like to mention that last year we had a 4.4% change, and the property tax statements that went out to individual parcel owners or homeowners actually showed a slightly larger change, a slightly larger increase throughout throughout October and November. The Minnesota Department of Education has continued to refine almost 40 pages of formulas, and they actually have lowered our property tax levy, which will be more favorable for our taxpayers. So they'll actually see a slightly lower amount on their bills that they receive after the first of the year, if the board does approve the full proposed levy. I would like to also mention that if you looked in the Star Tribune, you probably heard that the Star Tribune did a recent comparison of a number of school districts and a number of communities in the 7-county metro area. And we look very favorable, and we did not go to the voters and ask for any additional authority. So the amount that taxpayers saw on their property tax, proposed property tax statements will be the most that they would see for the pay 2017 property taxes. So just a couple of quick items. I'll go through this fairly rapidly because I know the board and our Citizens Finance Advisory Council has reviewed this information. So we talked about the total levy being a little over 60 million compared to 58 million last year. We have 3 funds that a portion of each of those operations are funded by property tax levy. The general fund is about 51,468,000 will be financing in the general fund. And once again, I mentioned that before, our voters have approved about $18 million worth of resources in an operating referendum. In 2009, we haven't asked for additional resources since 2009, and the maximum allowable time for an operating referendum authority to exist is 10 years. So we'll want to give careful consideration over the next several months to determine an appropriate response to having that expire, and perhaps we will be going to our voters soon to get that renewed. We can only renew operating referendums during the November elections. So unlike building bonds or capital projects or technology levies, we only have one day a year that we can go to our voters. So we'll want to give consideration to that. The Community Service Fund levy is about $1 million, and it's largely unchanged from the year before. And then our debt service levy, you'll probably notice, is a significant decline, and that was a planned decline. You're probably aware of the district paying off the high school. The high school was financed and built 20 years ago, and so we knew when the high school became, when the debt associated with the high school was paid off, that we would have the opportunity to finance our alternative facility program, where we replace parking lots, roofs, and other items out of the general fund. So in looking at the total, it's probably better when you look at the slide to look at the total levy, because of the fact that it's simply a reclassification of about $6.2 million of resources from the debt service fund to the general fund. So the effect on taxpayers is the next portion of our presentation. As I mentioned, the school board approved a 4.42% increase in property tax levy in 2016 from the year before. The school board approved a 4.18% increase in its preliminary tax levy in September, and the final 2017 levy being proposed tonight for approval is a 4.1% increase. The school levy increase from the prior year is primarily due to increased resident enrollment, tied directly to voter-approved referendum authority, as I mentioned. And then the market value of new construction of $346 million was added to the tax rolls. So that will help to soften the burden on any of our existing taxpayers. And as Mr. Carlstrom had indicated, we're anticipating significant investment, at least residential investment, in our community that will continue to soften the impact of any property tax amounts that are spread among the taxpayers. The district's tax levy is spread to property owners based upon their taxable market value. And unfortunately, there is not a direct, or well, not unfortunately, but there is not a direct correlation between the district's total levy change of 4.17% and what individual property owners will pay. The reason why I said unfortunately is because it would be easy to say it should be a 4.17% increase, or it should stay the same. But actually, there's a number of items, and market value is one of the major items that impacts individual taxpayers. So, as I mentioned, the district's tax levy is spread to property owners based upon taxable market value. And if a property owner has no increase in their taxable market value, the change in the school portion of the taxes will be a decrease. And once again, the market value is set by the county assessor or the city assessor. It's not set by the school district, and so we'll want to make sure that if our taxpayers would like to question the market value that their property has been assessed, that we point them in the right direction for that. And typically that occurs early in the year. January would be the time to have that looked at for the subsequent property tax year and pay 2018. Another key message is if the property owner has a decrease in taxable market value, the school portion of the taxes will decrease. And that's partly because of the addition of that over $350 million worth of additional market value and the continued residential investment in our community. This is where it gets a little tricky. There's a break point of $413,800 of market value, and this is a legislative breaking point where any home valued below the $413,800 sees a slight reduction in their property taxes, including the district portion, and any home over $413,800 in market value does not see a reduction. So that was an attempt to provide some tax relief for more modest or moderately market value properties. So if the property owner has an increase in their taxable market value and the home was valued at less than $413,800, the school portion of the taxes will increase slightly more because they were receiving slightly less of that tax relief. And then finally, if the property owner has an increase in taxable market value and the home was already valued over $413,800, the school portion of the taxes will increase slightly more than the percentage increase in the taxable market value. But let's actually take a look at some very specific items. This actually is a slide that takes some information that was recently in the Star Tribune just over the weekend. In that article, the Star Tribune received this information from various counties. We're looking at Hennepin County, specifically the Wayzata School District. So if you look at the following cities: Corcoran, Maple Grove, Medina, Minnetonka, Orono, Wayzata, Plymouth, it's only certain larger cities and municipalities were included in this study, but you can see that the changes in each city are slightly different, the changes in their market value. So for the most part, we've seen in the city of Medina, the median market value of a home increase less than 1%, 0.5%, so a half of a percent. The high is in the Orono-Wayzata city portion of our school district, with an average increase in the median value of 6.1%. So if we look at this, what we do is we calculate the 2015 taxes on the school district portion only, and then the 2016 taxes on the school district portion only, and then we attempt to determine what the dollar change is. So if you look at this, if you were in the city of Corcoran, well actually if you're in the city of Maple Grove or the city of Plymouth, and you lived in the exact median valued home in 2015, and you lived in the exact median valued home in 2016, you would see no change in your property taxes. If you lived in the city of Corcoran, Medina, or Minnetonka, you would actually, it's highly likely you would see a decline based on our calculations. And if you lived in the Orono or Wayzata portion of our school district, it's highly likely that you would see some type of increase, but that's mainly attributed to the increase in the market value. So, just the next couple charts, we won't go into great detail because I know we've already talked about this at our work session, and we've also already shared this with our Citizens Finance Advisory Council. But this first slide assumes that there's no change in market value. So this assumes that a $200,000 house today was worth $200,000 a year ago. And we compared the 2016 taxes to the 2017 taxes for the school district portion only. And in that case, it would be a $35 decrease from the previous year. And once again, that just shows the softening of the tax levy being spread across a much larger and broader tax base with the new investment that's occurring up in the northern portion of the district. Even a $750,000 home would see a 3.6% reduction, even though they're over that $413,600 tax break point. For those individual parcels that see a 3% increase in their assessed value, so if a $200,000 home increases by 3% to $206,000 this year, we're still projecting that there would be a slight decrease, although it would be slightly under a 1% decrease. And then we thought we would also take a look at a 6% increase in assessed values. With a 6% increase in assessed values, and you probably recall that the city of Wayzata, Orono, within our school district, that's closer to the average mean increase on a single family home. In that case, because our property taxes as a whole are only increasing 4.17%, their actual taxes are increasing between 2% and 2.8%. So we just wanted to, once again, let the board and let the community know at large that we pay careful consideration to this and are very prudent and cautious anytime that we're looking at our property tax levy. So the changes from last year, this is the summary part. The largest changes in the general fund levy is due to voter-approved referendum authority due to increasing resident student enrollment. As our auditor showed, you've seen a consistent increase in the number of students that the Wayzata School District is serving. And as Dick Karlstrom shared with the housing study, it's highly likely that we will continue to see that trend. So we will always see some type of increase in our local property tax levy, mainly due to the formulas that are associated with funding school districts. And then finally, the debt service for Meadow Ridge and the Wayzata High School addition is included in both the levy payable in 2016 and the levy payable in 2017. And you may recall that we received extremely favorable interest rates because of the school district's AAA bond rating, as well as the interest rate environment remained stable. So we issued the entire $109 million during a very stable and favorable interest rate environment, which directly translated into savings to our taxpayers. So at this point, this is the discussion portion of our meeting, and the public is invited to comment if anybody from the public would like to make any comments as well. So I can invite you if you'd like to approach the mic, and typically what we do is just have you state your name, and then you can make your comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
My name is Cheryl McRoberts, and I live in the easternmost part of Plymouth. My taxes went up 23.5%. And I called the city assessor. She gave me a list of properties that she based this on. And nothing in my neighborhood has sold in the last 5 years, so she picked a neighborhood over a mile away. And one of the houses, she uses it as an example, was, excuse me, I'm losing my voice, was, I know the people that bought it about 10 years ago for $250,000, and they sold it for $280,000, but they had put $100,000 into it. So they really lost $70,000 on it. And that was one of, I told her, I said, with that kind of decrease, we should have gone down 23% instead of gone up 23%. So I guess I don't know where to go at this point. I don't know. I don't know if I notify my congressman or what. I mean, I think when you say 4%, I think that's fair, but 23% is just off the charts, in my opinion. So, that's all.
Okay.
Well, thank you, first of all. Thanks for your patience and waiting for the opportunity to speak. I think I'll kind of defer to Mr. Westrom. He's the expert in this area, and hopefully there are people you can speak with. I'm not sure exactly who they are, but I'll let Mr. Westrom respond, if that's all right.
Sure. Well, I appreciate you attending the meeting tonight. I'm assuming that the market value is what is driving the increase in your property taxes. So I'd be happy to take a look at your property tax statement and work through that with you. And then I would encourage anybody who's watching tonight, watching the Truth in Taxation hearing, if they have any questions regarding the district's budget, regarding our property taxes, regarding our processes. We have an excellent website that shows our budget in great detail. We also put our comprehensive annual financial report on there, and we attempt to be good stewards of the public's resources and support. So those are the primary areas where you can get information, but you are welcome to give me a call too, and I can help you understand your property tax statement. So I do appreciate you coming this evening, and I'll meet with you if you can wait around for a few minutes. Thank you. Are there any other?
Are there any other members of the audience who wish to speak to the Truth in Taxation hearing? All right. Okay, thank you, Mr. Westrom. Are there any questions from the board? Otherwise, we can save those for the next motion to approve, if that's all right with you, Mr. Westrom.
Mm-hmm.